Good evening and welcome to the post-Thanksgiving City Council public forum and council meeting. We are flipped this today, so I'm going to constantly look in the wrong direction, but there's a problem with the camera, and so the podium is over on this side, so it will keep you all very alert to go walk in a different direction today. So just a little heads up to that we're looking the other way. We have a wonderful ceremonial occasion today. We are going to recognize someone who has done great work through his role in the court system, Judge Wayne Allen. After more than 43 years in service to the community, Judge Allen will leave his post as a presiding judge in the Eugene Municipal Court effective December 31st this year. While our efforts tonight to honor him can only touch the surface of his countless contributions and the level of our gratitude, we wanted to formally and publicly recognize and thank him on behalf of the entire community. So, Judge Allen, would you join me at the podium, please? Something ready for meals? Okay. Oh, could you carry that? Thank you. Great. I guess we can come right up in front, in fact. And let's see. Okay, we have this token of our gratitude and respect. Judge Allen. On behalf of the City of Eugene, it is my honor to offer these words of recognition, appreciation, and gratitude for your service to our city as the presiding judge for the Eugene Municipal Court. Throughout your more than 43 years with the City of Eugene, you have been deeply respected for your judicial excellence, your standard of accountability, and your compassion for all who come before you. Under your leadership and unrelenting drive to provide fair and compassionate justice, for this city, the Eugene Municipal Court has thrived and has become a leader among municipal courts in the state of Oregon. Over the years, you have introduced many innovative programs with the goal of breaking the negative cycles that affect many offenders in Eugene, bringing to bear your understanding that helping an offender help themselves can and does reduce recidivism. From day one, you have made sure that every single person charged with an offense in the Eugene Municipal Court was treated equitably and with respect, and that each was allowed their day in court. In a municipal court that processes an average of over 5,000 misdemeanors every year. That's the second highest number of misdemeanors filed in any court in the state of Oregon, behind only Multnomah County Circuit Court. The success you have brought to the Eugene Municipal Court is practically immeasurable. You championed alternative programs, all the while ensuring that the fundamental business of the court was handled in an efficient and effective manner. Every weekday, there are no less than 5 separate dockets with criminal and non-criminal matters. Each docket is full with criminal and non-criminal matters such as trials, motion hearings, arraignments, and sentencings, DUI diversion hearings, criminal case status hearings, jail appearances, and hearings. They also include appearances and hearings in specialty dockets such as the mental health court, the problem-solving court, and the community court. You have worked with 7 different Eugene city managers and 9 different municipal court administrators. Your current and most well-known impact is the successful implementation of the community court. The community court is a response by the Eugene Municipal Court to many of the low-level quality of life crimes being committed downtown. People who participate in community court are held accountable for their actions, but more importantly, they receive the treatment and attention they need to stabilize their lives, including achieving their housing, employment, and education goals. In the first year of the community court program, a previously unimaginable 91% of all graduates did not re-offend within the corporate city limits of Eugene. Judge Allen, for your unwavering dedication to this city, to this community, and to our system of justice, we thank you. Eugene is a wonderful city in no small part to what you, in your years with the Eugene Municipal Court, have been able to accomplish. And now, it gives me great pleasure to officially announce that the main courtroom, courtroom number 1 in Eugene Municipal Court, will be named the Wayne E. Allen Courtroom in your honor. This recognition will provide a positive reminder that each day is an opportunity to serve others equitably, with compassion and with respect, and to always do the right thing. Please join me in expressing our appreciation for Judge Wayne Allen and his wife, Kelly, and wishing them the best in the next chapter of their lives.
It wasn't me. That person they're talking about wasn't me. It was a bunch of us. It was a lot of people who had a common goal, and that goal was to seek justice. And that's kind of what we did over a long period of time. When I began to work in the court was essentially a traffic court. We'd have 150 arraignments every day scheduled to happen between 8 and 9 o'clock. And they were all traffic arraignments. And, you know, of course, all those people didn't appear, but we'd still have a person a minute to take a plea, reduce a fine, and so on. Well, we're different now. As the mayor indicated, it's a misdemeanor court. And misdemeanors are, by definition, crimes of, I think, crimes of sometimes poverty, sometimes addiction, sometimes poor judgment, but in any event, they are crimes, they are jailable, and we do have the second most misdemeanors in the state. So this is not a traditional municipal court. When you look here, you see Coburg, you see Veneta, Junction City, you see Springfield, Cottage Grove, Cresswell, and so on. Those cities have more traditional municipal courts than we do. We are a court of second chances. We give second chances to everybody who deserves it. No matter what your station in life, we're going to give you a chance to make amends for a mistake. We're going to give you a diversion. We're going to give you some education or some treatment. We're going to try to eliminate the reason, perhaps, for your appearance in court. But we also have those people who don't necessarily deserve a second chance. And they're down at the bus depot again this week, and this time they hit somebody in the face. Well, that person is not getting a second chance. They're getting a bed in the Springfield jail, and they're getting an exclusion from downtown. So we try to sort out those cases where people deserve and want a second chance versus those that don't. So you have to become adept, and I have a number of really good judges and prosecutors and defense attorneys who are adept at figuring out kind of what the categories are that this particular person might fit into, and hence the end result. So it is really a team effect. We would not even have a community court if Cheryl Stone hadn't brought it to us and put it right on the table. And we would never have known about community court. And then once we went to the first community court conference, well, it's addictive. You know, how could you say no? We wouldn't have a community court if Mary Morey hadn't on her own, with no help from me or anybody else, done a mental health court in 2004. And as a result of that, there's a mental health summit every week. As Sheriff Trapp said last week, well, it's too early in the morning, and it happens once a month. And we all come and we all get together, and there's that collaboration thing. Currently, there's a great collaboration going on between the city and the two jails that we use, Springfield and Lane County. We had 18 people at the last meeting. That was an idea that Judge Gill came up with, so we could work out some kinks and we could try to distribute our meager jail resources as best we could and as smoothly as we could between EPD and the jails, both jails. So those are the kind of things that we've done for the last X number of years. I'm way overdue. Let me see. I have a 4-year term, and every 4 years I'm evaluated. I'm the most evaluated judge in the history of Western jurisprudence. And then after that I have 4 years. Well, 8 years ago I did that, and I said, well, I'm not going to do 4 years, I might do 2. Well, I did that 4. And then I came up again, and I said, well, I'm not going to do 4, I might do 2. Well, here I am, and I've sort of run out of places to hide. This is it, you know. And I hate to leave it because it's been a hell of a ride. You know, it's not very many jobs you can get up in the morning and go to work and think, I'm going to do the right thing. And that's what I've been able to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you again. Really an honor to be able to honor you and to hear what you have to say about your career. All right, we are now ready for the public forum, and I'll just remind everybody of the rules. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. The timer and lights indicate the time you have to speak. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. And it looks like we have 25 people to speak. So podium's over there. And first up is Aria Seligman, followed by Becky Bruckner.
Hello, my name is Aria Seligman. I'm a City of Eugene Human Rights Commissioner, and I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the Human Rights Commission. I believe earlier at 5:30 at your work session, Councilor Semple read to you a letter that was sent to you from the Commission, and I'm here not to repeat that letter because that would be boring, but to speak to that letter on behalf of the Commission. You appointed me and the other commissioners to the Human Rights Commission because you trusted us and had faith in us to be your eyes and ears for human rights violations in the city of Eugene. I'm here to let you know that you are actively violating the human rights of people in Eugene who are unhoused, and we have ways to help you avoid that. We're able to work with you, and we hope that you will work with us too. Our biggest concern is that the city is in violation of Martin versus Boise. I know the city manager's office has said that because you're citing people rather than arresting people, that's okay and it gets you out of trouble. Well, citing people is still it's a form of punishment. And imagine this, you're driving down the highway, you see blue and red flashing lights in your rearview mirror, and you're hoping that the cop is going to pull over the guy behind you. You get pulled over instead. You're hoping you get a warning, not a ticket. You get a ticket instead. You don't have money to pay the ticket, and you don't have the wherewithal to go to court, as the judge was saying, to try to talk about that traffic fight. What happens then? You can't show up in court, and you don't have money to pay it. What happens then? For many people who are homeless, they become a part of the system this way. At the state level, the state legislators are now realizing the incredible cost burden of criminalizing people with mental illness who've been homeless. They end up in the system, and the prisons don't have the services to accommodate these people. Often then they're funneled over to the state hospital, where the cost is $1,200 per person per day to be there, yeah. So they're going, maybe this doesn't make sense, criminalizing people who are homeless. Maybe we should look at that. Yes, maybe they should, and maybe you should as well. The judge was just talking about how compassionate the city of Eugene is and how you give people second chances, and I greatly appreciate that. And he also mentioned that addressing the cause of somebody's criminal behavior, and if you can address the cause, you can eliminate it. Well, we're working on shelter, right? Lack of shelter is the cause. So if somebody is not going to have shelter, which is a basic human right, we can't penalize them for that. We need to give them a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, until we as a community are able to provide shelter to them. We can't punish them for not having shelter. That simply doesn't make any sense. So you have the letter before you that the commission passed unanimously, and what that was, for those of you who haven't seen it, is passing a resolution to encourage or request that the city council pass its own resolution to end the practice of citing people who are homeless. I'm hoping that rather than doing the bare minimum to avoid a Martin versus Boise lawsuit, Eugene can do the maximum and start by seeing people who need help, not punishment. Thank you.
Thank you. Becky Bruckner, followed by Cindy Allen.
Hello, can you hear me? My name is Becky Bruckner, and I live up near Hendricks Park, and I have owned a home there for 14 years. I'm here today because of my concerns about 5G technology. We now currently have 4G on all of our cell phones. 5G is currently being tested by the telecom corporations in many states across America. The nearest states to Oregon that are being tested are in California, San Francisco, California, and in Washington. The rollout of 5G should be completed across all of America by 2020 if it is not stopped. I am in favor of no 5G in Oregon and certainly not in Eugene. What is 5G? How is it made? How will it affect us? And where will it be installed? Is to say the least. At least it's very complicated, the subject. But I have to say, from my point of view, it is not good news for humanity. I have read a lot on this subject, but it is scientific and can be overwhelming, and it takes some time to study it. I am not the only person who feels this technology is dangerous, to say the least. So I am respectfully submitting a letter written to the state legislators of California when the bill SB 649 was introduced in 2017. Dr. Martin Paul, Professor Emeritus of Biochemistry and Basic Medical Sciences at Washington State University, submitted this letter. And this is the letter I have copied for all of you to see. He lives in Portland. He received his PhD at Caltech, which is one of the top scientific institutions in the world. He is a published and widely cited scientist on the biological effects of electromagnetic fields, and he speaks internationally on this subject. He is particularly an expert on how wireless radiation impacts the electrical systems in our bodies. I have his letter, and I've copied it for you to read. I feel the state of Oregon certainly cannot even think of voting this new technology in, cannot even think of voting this new technology in being without a full education of what 5G actually is. What are the dangers for us? This is the big question. This letter is the start on your journey to finding out. The California legislators passed this bill, though, through on September the 13th, 2017, but Governor Jerry Brown vetoed it. I can't finish.
Thank you. But you can submit it to us.
Oh, well, that's my,
yeah.
I can submit my letter, yeah.
Yeah, you may submit. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
I made one for each of you.
Excellent.
So where do I put it?
We'll take them over here.
Oh, okay.
That's great. Thank you very much. Cindy Allen, followed by Victor Odlevek.
Cindy Allen. There are multitudes of non-industry funded scientific studies showing the health effects of EMF radiation, going back decades. Recently, world-recognized EMF expert Dr. Martin Paul spoke in Eugene about the health problems associated with smart meters. EEG and EKG changes damage DNA, increases in cancer, disruption of melatonin needed for sleep and bodily repair. The talk is available on the internet under Dr. Martin Paul, Eugene, Smart Meters and 5G. 3 states, New Mexico, Kentucky, and Massachusetts, have rejected the smart meter program, deeming it to be financially unfeasible, and there's legislation pending in others. There's an excellent internet video of electrical engineer William Bathgate testifying in 2018 to the Michigan legislature on why the bills go up with smart meters. His testimony is that unusable transient electricity is produced by the smart meter. His bill increased by over 15%. General David Petraeus, the former head of the CIA, has stated that the smart meter and a centralized grid poses serious security issues. Research indicates that the smart meter is more susceptible to hot sockets than the analog meter. We also have the recent information released by Breitbart about micro malware being found in board components made in China. Are any parts of the Census smart meter made in China? Firefighters with years of experience have spoken on the internet about never seeing fires of the type seen in California, whole communities of homes leveled. Those who lost homes talk about no warning of nearby fires, no EMS warnings, just sudden neighborhood warnings of get out now. In my opinion, now's not the time to remove the analog meter. We need much more information. Ratepayers in Josephine and Jasper County, Oregon, are also pursuing legal action on smart meters regarding violation to their Fourth Amendment rights to privacy. Our analog meters last 50 to 60 years and do not have the risk associated with the smart meters. eWeb is a public-owned utility. If you would like to keep your analog meter, call or send eWeb a registered letter and let them know. Others in Eugene have done this and are doing this also. Worldwide, groups have organized with opposition to smart meters. Our local group is Families for Safe Meters. We have a website with current information, and you can follow us on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Victor Odlevac, followed by Todd Boyle.
Yes, Victor Odlevac of 1620 Lorraine Highway, right here in Eugene. I'm also part of Families for Safe Meters. And all the videos and information you want about Dr. Paul and various people and 5G, that's all on the familiesforsafemeters.org website. I submitted a resolution to you 2 weeks ago about the financial waste of the smart meters, and I never heard back from the City Council. I would like to see that be passed, be voted on. It is $30 million per year, $600,000 a week that is being wasted. This is a huge amount of money. I mean, analog meters, glass and metal, and they're grounded, so they automatically have surge protection. They've been working fine since 1875 in Berlin when they originally started, and why all of a sudden, just because, you know, the person at eWeb wants to be able to, with mouse clicks, turn the power on and off when students move in and out. We're looking for the easy solution, but the easy solution winds up costing a lot more money, a lot more energy, a lot more time. And so we just have to stop all this wastefulness. And lastly, 5G. 5G is totally ridiculous. We're already over-inundated by the cell phones. People can't even drive without messing with their cell phones, and the 5G will just make it even more intense. The whole purpose of 5G is so that people can watch videos on their cell phone anywhere at any time, and we are already using 1/8 of the electricity of the world on the internet. 5G is going to double this. This is just a total waste and totally stupid. And 5 gigahertz frequency, the EMF going through you is really, really bad. I mean, when you go to a dentist, you know, they're far away in the other room and they push the button and they wear the lead. But, you know, people aren't going to be wearing that. This is just really, really stupid. And please have some sense. Go to our website, talk to us, call us up, email us, familiesforsafemeters2@gmail.com. Talk to us, and, you know, we have to stop this insanity. It's absolute insanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Boyle, followed by Patty Hine.
Good evening. So I'm going to give a play in 4 acts and a discourse on mashed potatoes, all in the space of 3 minutes. First we go, the first decile of incomes in Eugene, if there's 180,000 population, that would be 18,000 people, more or less. And their income is, we don't know exactly because the statistics aren't available, but their incomes is well below $1,000 a month. A lot of them are living on $600-800 a month. So these 18,000 people are on a treadmill, or let's say a conveyor belt to displacement. And they can't pay the current rents because they're paying $200 or $300 a month where they are, and as soon as their rent goes up, then they are in displacement out to those camps. There's a number of people out there, they can pay $300 or $400 a month, and they're even talking about it, but they can't find any places because there's no place for. So here's the play. When the income is going in this direction, and when the rents are going in this direction, then there is a permanent wedge that's causing a permanent displacement of a bunch of people, and that is like the gears of a clock, and those gears are just going to keep turning out. I don't know how many, 150 a month I've heard of homeless people, and so you're going to have way more homeless people than you can build public housing for, and so let's fix the first decile of housing by making it cheaper. And this is the 4th act. It's 12 o'clock, it's high noon, let's get rolling on cheaper housing. So the second part is, due to the fact that the housing is too expensive, I've been going to the housing tools and strategies and filming those for you guys, and they have more than 80 choices, you know, that they voted on in their straw poll at the November 14th meeting, and none of them really show any aptitude or interest in cheap housing. And the word is low cost, cheap, not expensive. It doesn't matter what the word you use, but it has to cost like $50,000. It can't cost $240,000 per unit as they spent at the Myrtlewood. And the low-income industrial complex doesn't produce housing any cheaper than the private sector. It's just in a different way, you know, but different people doing the same thing. The citizens are not going to pay for the difference between the $50,000 house that those people can afford and the $250,000 public housing units. That's not going to happen. We know that. You haven't got the money. So this is the mashed potato part. If you have 10 children, and that's the deciles, and one of them has no potatoes, and some of them have a little bit of potatoes, and then the rich guy has a garbage can lid full of mashed potatoes, and you just have a little bit of mashed potatoes to distribute among your 10 kids. What I hear you saying is you're going to give a little bit of potatoes across the board, mainly to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th deciles, and then a whole bunch of it to the 10th decile, the Mupti. And so I want that any public resources spent by the city of Eugene should be spent first on the first decile, because that is where the housing emergency is producing all the homeless people. That's it.
Thank you. Patty Hine, followed by, what does that say? Somebody Kelly. Linda Kelly, thank you.
Sorry, this is not about food. My name is Patty Hine. Good evening, City Manager and Mayor and councilors. It's nice to be here. I live in the county. 350 Eugene has been attending all of the city's Climate Action 2.0 project update meetings. And we were shocked to see the initial forecast presented by Good Company and told you about that 2 weeks ago. A day later, you were briefed on the forecasted gap here at a work session for the Northwest Natural Gas Franchise Agreement, and we were really glad to hear you asking some hard questions and seeing how we could change that franchise agreement to help us reach our climate goals under the Climate Recovery Ordinance you passed in 2014, so good job. Coincidentally, looks like the CAP 2.0 project is Eugene's own version of the 2015 Paris Climate Accords, where all those voluntary reductions don't come anywhere near close to helping us reach our targets. And lately, the scientific reports that have been piling up are increasing the severity and the rapid advance of the climate breakdown. As you know, UN scientists said last month that we have about 12 years to turn it around before the tipping points come. Our planet has a fever. You might even say we're on fire. So I really like the OSU professor of philosophy and now climate science and activist Kathleen Dean Moore's quiz. She says, if our house is on fire, what should we do? A, stare into the flames and say it's not happening. B, loudly debate to see if it was caused by a person or by natural variation in the temperature of the house. C, write grants to study how fast it's advancing. D, appoint commissions to see how to adapt to life in a burned out hovel of a house that was once inexpressibly beautiful. Of course not. We throw everything that we've got at it. And we know that's what we're trying to do. So the CAP 2.0 process that has looked at our problem, gotten some grants and studied it and appointed commissions to advance the plan, and soon we'll be beginning adaptation studies. But we're still far short of taking the strongest possible actions with the speed, scale, and dare I say enthusiasm commensurate with the problem. What are we waiting for? In 2011, the city of Eugene had a climate survey that revealed that residents accepted that climate change is occurring and is caused by human activity and that it's a serious problem. 2011. 71% of residents agreed that long-term impacts will likely be catastrophic. 71%. Residents believe that individuals can make a difference in addressing climate change and that action is necessary. And 81% agreed that we have to entirely rethink our behavior. I think it's time to bust it out this year. We're going to try to work with you to bust it out. We're really facing an emergency, and so we should be acting like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Kelly, followed by Jim New.
Thank you. I live in Ward 1, Emily Semple's ward. This is just a follow-up from a small testimony I gave 3 or 4 weeks ago, where I talked about, again, climate recovery ordinance, climate action plan, the idea of the Sustainability Commission doing outreach into the neighborhoods, and my sort of disappointment that that wasn't moving as quickly as I was thinking it should. So I got together with a person or two, and we came up with this idea of doing a community sustainability series as a way to outreach into the neighborhood through the neighborhood associations. I'm just going to read you the first 3 paragraphs of this draft proposal. So background is City of Eugene's climate recovery ordinance includes an individual action behavior change program. An important aspect of this future program will be education resources for the community on residential scale practices, as well as technologies that residents of Eugene can implement to reduce their carbon emissions. First step could be a series of sustainability talks to provide a foundation for future education programs. Sustainability Commission would be the best host for the pilot, with support from community organizations such as 350 Eugene. The audience, we're hoping, this is a pilot program, a test, that city staff working on the CAP 2, building department staff, neighborhood association leaders and community group leaders and general public interested would, and including the Sustainability Commission, would actually come to this series of offerings and sort of evaluate them and give feedback. And then the next step would be to have something to take out into the neighborhood association. So we're basically trying to support the Sustainability Commission in the task that you had sort of laid out for them to do outreach into the community. So the idea would be something like having 4 topics, 1 on energy, 1 on water, 1 on transportation. That's a thought to begin with. And then there's outlines for the presentations and some ideas that we have around that. And we have already have some resources and expertise of people who have some knowledge to be able to do that. And we'll continue to do the outreach, talking to people at eWeb who are working with some of those programs and really try and put a package together and then try it out on y'all, basically, and see what the feedback is, and then be able to have something that either Sustainability Committee or somebody else can take out to the neighborhood associations. So this is the offering for the month.
Thank you. Jim New, followed by Donna Riddle.
Mayor and Council, my name is Jim New. I live in Ward 7. It was encouraging to hear the appreciative dialogue between Council and the Sustainability Commission last week. Your comments about trust, amount of work accomplished, and Council's consideration of the recommendations suggested by the Commission exemplifies the purpose of city boards and commissions, and I thank you. The Sustainability Commission recommendation regarding the Northwest Gas franchise agreement could be the most important Council considers in achieving the goals of the Climate Recovery Ordinance. A commissioner and Northwest Gas representative stated November 1st that more gas comes into the city than is used by the customers from an interstate pipeline that serves commercial, industrial gas customers paid in a transport tariff regulated by the PUC. Greenhouse gas reductions were based on actual Northwest Gas customers supplied, not transport tariff direct use customers, of which some industrial commercial businesses are unable to be regulated. This may signify that sector-based greenhouse gas emission figures may be even higher than reported in the large lever shareholder meetings. According to an eWeb report, gas heat has a carbon footprint of 25 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year, where electric heat has a carbon footprint of 0.25 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. Northwest Gas carbon footprint is prevalent in all three greenhouse gas reduction buckets: buildings, transportation, and materials. The 32,000 Northwest Gas customers in Eugene produce 8 times more greenhouse gas emissions than electrical customers, despite there being 3 times the number of eWeb customers at 90,000. This leads to ask, why is there such an inequity in franchise agreement fees and contributions in lieu of taxes between Northwest Gas and eWeb? Why does Northwest Gas, with the combustion of its fossil fuel product impeding the city from reaching the goals of the CRO, pay less than eWeb, which delivers almost 90% clean energy? Northwest Gas, a for-profit company, pays $1.4 million a year in franchise fees, where eWeb, owned by the customers, pays $14 million a year in contributions in lieu of taxes. We are penalizing ourselves for using cleaner energy, where the carbon major pays less for polluting more, at least 8 times more. We are basically subsidizing Northwest Gas and their customers here in Eugene. As you heard Good Company point out with the CAP update, because of fossil fuel use, we are falling woefully short on our CRO goals, but staff hinted we look outside the Northwest Gas franchise agreement for remedies when the franchise agreement is where the most reductions can be achieved. Getting gas customers to fuel switch to electric and incentivizing electrification must be the message to the public. Increased gas fees could help gas customers with fuel switching incentives, and we must also prohibit new gas infrastructure. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Donna Riddle, followed by Mindy Stone.
A little short here. Donna Riddle, Springfield, Oregon. I was really excited a few weeks ago when you were talking about a day center for people downtown. You know, winter's here. Where's the day center? It's not. The Greyhound building just got sold to the Justina Consortium, and while I don't have contacts with them, I'm sure that some of you or the city manager probably moves in the same circles. They're not going to be building anything this winter. You should consider that for a day center for people this winter. If the Justina Consortium agreed, I'm sure there would be a ton of volunteers that would help clean it up and get it ready for use in a very short time. You're still looking for places for rest stops, or I would really like to see fewer people at the 99 camp. I think it's still a disaster waiting to happen. And I would really like to see you consider using the fenced area behind the former eWeb Water Department building for seniors, the disabled, and women. Thank you.
Thank you. Mindy Stone, followed by Sandy Sanders.
Good evening. So I'm reading from a website called scientistsforwiredtech.com. Is 5G a technological revolution or a Pandora's box? Pima County, Arizona 5G Awareness Coalition Public Forum is 5G a technical revolution or a Pandora's box? Elizabeth Kelly, with a master's in public health administration, earned her master's degree from the University of Southern California, has worked on public health issues for decades, including as a public policy analyst for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in D.C. Kelly also directs the International EMF Scientist Appeal Campaign to the United Nations, now signed by 244 scientists in 41 nations. In 1996, Kelly understood that the FCC's radio frequency radiation human exposure guidelines were inadequate to protect against adverse biological effects. Since then, after Kelly also discovered that the 1996 Telecommunications Act preempted states, counties, and cities' authority to regulate the placement, construction, and modification of wireless telecommunications facilities. She's been tirelessly advocating for greater health and environmental protection from non-ionizing radiation sources. Kelly has produced or co-produced several documentary films, including Public Exposure, DNA, Democracy, and the Wireless Revolution, which has been awarded Best Documentary at Santa Cruz Film Festival in 2001 and 2003, and the film Cell Phones Just Like Cigarettes. Everyone knows that tobacco lied about cigarettes, big oil lied about climate change. This is the third leg of the stool, how big wireless used the same exact playbook to deceive the public and create the appearance of scientific uncertainty, making people think that cell phones are safer than independent science suggests. This despite the fact that the wireless industry's own scientists privately warned it decades ago there were serious questions about wireless radiations linked to cancer and genetic damage. One key player has not been swayed by all this wireless-friendly research, the insurance industry. We found not a single insurance company that would sell a product liability policy that covered cell phone radiation. That means all those kids in schools that have wireless technology who develop cancer, those parents may not sue the telecommunications industry that harm their children.
Thank you. Sandy Sanders, followed by Eliza Kaczynski.
Hello, my name is Sandy, and I live in Maxwell Road. And a lot of things have been spoken about this issue, and those are really awesome. So I don't want to go over each one of those again. But the issue is, why are we having these technologies when they don't serve any purpose to the public? There's no cost benefit. There's no health benefit. They're all negative. It's like progress for progress's sake. We have a country who the corporate 1% have coup d'etat and turned a democracy into an autocracy of whatever they want to decide to dump down on us. And it's about time that when we take new technologies on, we test them thoroughly to make sure they are usable for people, they're going to provide service, they're going to be less cost, they're going to be safe, and something that we want. And not just told that by 2020, we're going to have 5G and smart meters everywhere. This is insane. And for myself, I think we should hire lawyers to find if we can have this stuff blocked. And if we can't have it blocked, we're going to move out of here. We're going to move to some place that's safe. And it's really clear, this technology is deadly stuff. We heard a talk at the church a couple of weeks ago from Dr. Paul, listing this long list of criteria of things they have found that have been wrong with this. The data goes back to the 70s in the Navy. These people all know this stuff is deadly. They've gone to Congress. They've said to Congress, legislate it so that we're not responsible. So you have this 5G technology is being rolled out. They're not responsible for any damage it makes. Anyone who does that is evil and purposely trying to foist off something on us that they know they're going to be responsible for. So I'm just saying, this is a no-do issue. This has got to go nowhere. And I'm going to be fighting this completely until we do. If we can find some lawyers, I don't know. It's just terrible. That's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Eliza Kaczynski, followed by Jennifer Frenzer-Knowlton.
Hello, my name is Eliza Kaczynski. I live in Ward 1, and I'm a member of WECAN. For over a year, WECAN has been talking primarily about code changes to make accessory dwelling units easier in Eugene. But we know that ADUs alone are not going to solve our housing crisis. They are just a tiny piece of the solution. So why the focus on ADUs? For decades, the majority of updates to Eugene's zoning code have made housing harder to build and have made the processes more difficult to navigate. Our high-level statements have said repeatedly that rather than expand into the farm and forest land, we wish to provide housing we need with the land that we already have. But in practice, we have downzoned, limited housing, and added barriers to the point of absurdity. We are not going to achieve our goals of providing housing that is affordable to all income levels while also protecting our natural resources and planning for climate change if we continue to only pass regulations that mostly serve to protect existing single-family homeowners from the impacts of neighborhood evolution. The values expressed in Envision Eugene can sometimes be in conflict, but we have consistently, when it comes to zoning, privileged one perspective over all the others. If we're going to solve our housing crisis, we need to shift direction. And we need to see City Council and City staff shift direction. No more last-minute code changes to add barriers and confusion and delays that are written by activists and passed by council with no opportunity for comment and limited evaluation of the impacts. Accessory dwelling units are the smallest, simplest modification we can make to start moving in the right direction on housing. Of all the types of new housing that we can create, ADUs are one of the most affordable. While all new construction is going to be more expensive than we wish it would be, if nothing else, ADUs don't require the purchase of additional land, which can add significantly to the cost. Of all the ways that we can fit additional homes into our community, ADUs have the least impact on neighbors. ADUs are small and frequently come in the form of a cute cottage or the conversion of an existing building. If we can't manage to make ADUs easier, how are we going to be able to confront the even tougher questions? By asking, can we remove zoning barriers to ADUs in Eugene, we are also asking, is Eugene willing to do more than talk about achieving a vision of affordable, available, and diverse housing? So far, the answer has been no. But once we take that first step, it makes it easier to take another. And we've got a long way to walk. Thank you.
Please. Thank you. Jennifer Frenzer-Knowlton, followed by Ed McMahon.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Frenzer, and I live in Betty Taylor's ward. I appreciate the comments of Commissioner Seligman. I appreciate her candor. I do think there are things that we could be doing to eliminate the human rights violations that are occurring. I thank you for your conversation during the work session. Appreciate that counselors are actually looking for sites. You're going to find out it's hard. I've done it before with the help of planning staff, and it is very difficult. But we do need more sites, and we do need a yes in my backyard campaign, not a no in my backyard campaign, and one that is staffed and funded by by people from government, not just volunteers trying it. It's not a possible thing. It needs to be a citywide campaign that's fully embraced and pushed by the city to change people's perspectives that these rest stops are a negative thing instead of a positive thing. They're actually really helpful. I have one just a few blocks from my house. I was very fortunate to be able to hire people to help me maintain my property. So it's a very good thing for the neighborhood. It does not create crime. It alleviates crime. It alleviates pressure downtown. If you want more folks to find places to live, not sleep downtown, then create places for them elsewhere. In addition, it's true, the rest stops are not a silver bullet. They weren't designed to be that. And yet, there are other alternatives that we could quickly employ, like car camping, that is not being employed to its greatest extent. And please stop impounding people's vehicles. This is a crime against humanity to take away people's houses in this manner. So we should be embracing more car camping, making it more feasible. Right now, St. Vincent will only allow 3 sites for car camping, but the ordinance allows 6. Let's find more people who will step up and allow 6 sites or create situations where we can park and have a porta potty in various locations at dead-end streets, places. We just need to exploit that more. We just haven't really run with that. Lastly, we do need more bathrooms. I hope you do that. And I want to thank Mayor Venice for showing up at an event we held at the new camp on 99. That shelter spot is serving a very important purpose. But as you may or may not know, it's almost impossible to cross the street there, and there's a fair number of people with mobility issues, walkers and wheelchairs. Expecting them to go several blocks out of the way is not feasible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed McMahon, followed by Sue Sierra Lupe.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Ed McMahon, Zego Director of the Home Builders Association of Lane County, located at 1065 River Road. I wanted you to know that we appreciate your action to include housing on the list of the 3 top council focus points this year. I also appreciate the action and the support on the ongoing Housing Tools and Strategy Working Group, the Better Housing Together activity, declare an objective cleanup, and we just started work on the Envision Eugene Technical Advisory Committee. Still a bit early to discover the results of those above actions, but at this point, I consider these actions to be evidence that you are serious about addressing our housing crisis. I thank you for that. Now, I ask that you understand my confusion when you get to the transportation SDC issue later tonight. How can we justify increasing an SDC by almost 50% when we're trying to decrease the high cost of housing? Yes, all the incentives sound good, and breaking the increase up to half now, half in a year helps, but it's still the same result, a 50% increase to an SDC and increasing housing cost. Please remember, housing is one of your top 3 priority focus points this year, and reject this cost increase. In closing, I'd like to point out once again that the council should know the financial consequences of a plan before that plan is approved. I think it's absolutely ridiculous for you to approve a plan and then come back 3 to 4 months later and learn the financial consequences of that plan. How can you approve a plan without knowing the financial consequences? Let's hope that these other activities come to fruition, and I thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you. Sue Sierra Lupe, followed by Ron Bevert.
My name is Sue Sierra Lupe, and I've been a resident of Ward 1 for over 25 years. I have come here in the past to speak as the clinic manager of Occupied Medical, but tonight I'm speaking as myself, a taxpaying resident of this ward. Earlier this month, I noted with pleasure that our plea to provide temporary shelter in the Nerve Center of Eugene, close to services, was finally going to be honored. A week later, the hopes of our community were dashed. The vacant land promised to us to help our fellow citizens is dangled in front of us at a critical juncture in the weather, and this was whisked away. This City Council bent an ear to the squeakiest and most influential wheel in Lane County, the self-described downtown business stakeholders, which represent a small section of those of us who live here, work here, and own businesses here. My husband and I are business owners. We have 2 businesses between us, and we have decades of home ownership under our belts. We have dropped far more money into the tax coffers than any fly-by-night downtown business owned by non-residents of our city, and I believe that this, in addition to my standing as a professional who has worked with the unhoused, should be acknowledged. I am joining voices with my neighbors who are also home and business owners and ask that there be a realistically placed center for those who are unhoused in Ward 1. Downtown is the most logical place. It is near bus mall, water fountains, food, and has basic hygiene access. Basic, very basic. My neighbors have donated time, services, energy, and supplies to those in need. One of them donates legal service to those in need. One of them does regular fundraisers to support Nightingale. A hefty chunk of them served at the Whitaker Thanksgiving feast this last week. And of course, many respond charitably to my constant begging for help at Occupy Medical. Bless their patient souls. We all read the letter from the downtown stakeholders, which offered help in regards to the proposed downtown camp. They wanted to be part of the conversation. They may not be aware that they are welcome to speak here at the public comment section of this meeting. They may not be aware that they are welcome to donate money and services to the existing organizations like Occupy Medical, St. Vincent de Paul, Shelter Care, Looking Glass, and many other hands-on care services that help the unhoused that they are complaining about. Simply stating that those struggling with poverty should be shipped away to Highway 99 is discompassionate, impractical, and illogical. My neighbors in Ward 1 and I want a downtown center, a day center, more bathrooms with hand-washing sinks, more water fountains, and a rest stop in every ward. We want our taxes to help all citizens of our ward and not just a handful of downtown business owners.
Thank you. Ron Bevert, followed by Michael Kerrigan.
Good evening. Ron Bevert, Ward 2. I'm one of the 3 representatives from the Neighborhood Leadership Council on the Housing Tools and Strategies Working Group. I'm speaking on my own behalf tonight, not representing any of these other agencies. I believe the participants in the working group began with high hopes that we could present recommendations to council that might make a difference with the problem of rising housing costs for many Eugene residents. Unfortunately, I am discouraged by the progress that we've made over 3 meetings. Maybe the 4th meeting will turn things around. The working group has failed to work within existing guidance documents, has failed to use data, to adequately define terms, to have clear and in-depth discussions of the pros and cons of various issues. Too many not well understood topics are under consideration. Many topics are irrelevant. No connection has been demonstrated showing that any of the topics under consideration will increase housing affordability. Too much time has been spent on misguided process. Many participants have limited background in the many details of code and existing guidance documents. The results reported out from the working group will have little factual or data-based rigor. Nothing of value is gained by measuring the opinions of participants on unclearly presented topics. Little useful information will come from the present working group. The form of the meeting template has created the failure. None of the issues and topics were unknown before the working group began. Many topics could have received pro and con presentations. For instance, the construction excise tax, it would have been useful to hear and compare the pros and cons of whether to use or not to use the CET, or to reduce or defer various SDCs. The main housing problem facing Eugene is a shortage of affordable housing. Affordable housing requires subsidies. How are we going to fund affordable housing subsidies? So I see 3 main things that haven't really gotten much attention, and the buildable lands inventory, which is being worked on, expanding the UGB, which is also under consideration with the urban reserves. But the third and most important thing is I think we need a study regarding how to fund and subsidize affordable housing for the lowest income population. So I'm hoping that council will consider having further working groups to address some of these more specific issues that are more relevant than some of the things you're going to hear from the report that comes out of the working group. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Kerrigan, followed by Michael Gannon.
My name is Michael Kerrigan. I'm a resident of Ward 7. I'm also the Shelter Rights Coordinator for Community Alliance of Lane County. I've been involved with the Rest Stop program from the beginning. It's something I'm very proud of. They've been a great success, but as you discussed earlier, we need to find more sites. So I'm going to plan on rolling up my sleeves to help with that, including Ward 8. But a key thing is loosening the siting criteria so we can place them in residential neighborhoods. The Nightingale Hosted Shelter is in a residential neighborhood in Southeast. It's been a great success, and it has the strong support of the Southeast neighbors. The need is great. We need a variety of shelter options. I attended an open house last weekend at the Highway 999 unhoused camp. I was very impressed by what was happening there. 100 folks had a safe place to be. And this, I think the camp out there can play a key role in our winter strategy to provide safe shelter for those in need. And also, thank you, Mayor Vinnis, for attending the event. And what really impressed me is that you talked to everybody who wanted to talk to you. So I was very impressed by that. So, thank you for doing that. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission Homeless Working Group, and I strongly support the letter that was, read to you tonight, that we must decriminalize homelessness in our community and not cite people for sleeping. Safe shelter is a basic human right that must be respected. Thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. Michael Gannon, followed by Zandi Zinke.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm from Ward 7. Want to talk to you about global warming and traffic, I guess, because I don't really know how to approach you on it since I've approached you on it a number of times and I haven't seen any results. But I've looked carefully at the state laws that regulate intersections and establish crosswalks. So I need to tell you a couple of recent incidents. One was last summer. I'm on the way to the bottle drop. Most people going by foot to the bottle drop look kind of homeless. And I resist being pushed around by big automobiles. So all I have to do, according to the law, is put a foot off the curb. And then I'm entitled to have the car stop and cross the street. I don't do it that abruptly, but I do it. And I think that when we think about the ramifications of the recent United Nations report on global warming and now last Friday's report from leading American climate scientists, that we could, if we do something with global warming, we could look to a quieter future, a safer future, a more pleasant future, or none at all, of course. So these great big vehicles that come roaring down some of our streets remind me of climate deniers. So back to last summer going to the bottle drop. I actually risked my life and got people to stop for me. And I kind of crossed the street and felt good about that. I thought that was progress. So shortly after that, a big old black, brand new pickup truck came roaring down the street I was walking on, pulled up alongside of me, and chewed me out for blocking the street. And the most pertinent quote was, if it wasn't broad daylight and there weren't so many people around, I'd get out of my truck and beat you until you were a spot on the ground. I don't think that we need to do that to stop climate change, but that's an example of where it's going.
Thank you. Zandi Zinke, followed by Wayne Martin.
Hi, Sandi Zinke, Ward 1. First, I want to say that I appreciate people coming and talking about 5G and that it's simply got to be a no. So earlier today in your work session, I heard you all say that the problem with expanding rest stops is a matter of public perception. People don't want them. They misperceive that unhoused people or people congregating in rest stops is unsafe. Claire Syrett, I appreciate that you acknowledge that the administrative rules that apply to the ordinance propagate that bias. And yet, I see that you're all participating in the bias still today in that workshop, in that room. You, any one of you, could have asked your staff, the city staff, why the city hall lot cannot be used. We know that we need more places immediately. There might be a 3-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. Mayor Vinny's was at 99 on Saturday. I think you can see what community means. It is vital, right? And so, there is no reason why none of you asked the pertinent question, why? You identified a site. You even spent money developing plans for the site. Why can we not have that site? The ruse was that, oh, it'll be better out on 99. Well, we all know Camp 99 is completely full, right? On Saturday when you were there, Mayor Vinny's too, I saw them saying, well, this is supposed to be a fire lane, but never mind, put your tent here because we won't turn anyone away, brother. Why did you not ask that question today? We asked that question of Mayor Vinny's on Monday when she was tasked to report on Shelter Downtown, and she said she couldn't answer. She was worried it might go on Facebook. Stop the ruse and be politicians that represent the people and stop protecting the bogus bullies of money downtown. The person I appreciated, Sue, you were, I think, well, someone else was saying, you know, I make money, I have businesses. Right, but you're not one of the chairs, you're not on the board of directors of SHED, who also is wealth management for Merrill Lynch. Please, we need it now. I'll say 2 things. I watched a man being moved in just on Saturday. A family brought him there and brought his son there, who's maybe looked between 12 and 14. And this son said, I had no idea there were so many people like my father. They need to be visible and downtown.
Thank you. Wayne Martin, followed by Douglas Bovee.
Council, Manager, Mayor. On Saturday, it was good to be with you at the site. The idea for an open house for Highway 99 camp was that we, the members of the Homeless Working Group of the Human Rights Council. We felt that it was important for the public to come and mingle with the folks there and to see their situation and to look and move through it and to enjoy some hospitality and some food. All those were wonderful. Perhaps you haven't yet been commended enough, because we found that your presence there made an enormous difference. I'll go so far as to say that the way you interacted with everyone there, especially those who live there, was magnanimous. And in my opinion, you made City Hall come alive at that site. I have 3 suggestions I'd like to offer for your consideration. 1, I suggest you create a department designated to focus on the emergency condition of homelessness in Eugene. I suggest you conduct a widespread search to hire an experienced director of Homeless Services. I recommend you hire someone who has helped other cities deal with the emergency of homelessness. It would even be a benefit if such a manager who has personally experienced homelessness prior to her or his academic leadership qualifications. I cite the example of Sponsors. That organization that does so well totally implements people who have been in those places, and now they're very qualified to run the organization. Secondly, create a homeless commission which will report to the council on a regular basis on the steps being taken to increase safe shelter and improve public and individual health of those without access to resources, and to initiate programs to reduce drug abuse, theft, assault, and fear, which riddled the homeless community. Finally, use the Chamber of Commerce to hold bi-weekly dialogues between business people and homeless people so that both their needs and benefits can be served. There's more, but thank you.
Thank you. Doug Bovee, followed by Sabra Marcroft.
Hello, thank you. I'm Douglas Bovee. I live in Ward 1. I'm president of the Board of Community Supported Shelters. So I'm here to do a little bit of follow-up on the Rest Stop presentation. And I want to specifically address the sites issue and the operator capacity, just briefly. And in the spirit of the season, I'm going to do it through appreciations. So first off, my appreciation to my counselor, Emily Semple, for wanting a downtown site. And I'm working with her, although she doesn't fully know that, I don't think, but I'm pursuing a site right next to the new Eugene Civic Alliance across 20th Avenue, corner of 20th and Amazon. I think it's a possible site, so we're working on that. I appreciate Councilors Clark and Taylor for your speaking out on this need for a shelter. Let's get it done. Apparently the money is there from what Councilor Clark said. Let's get this shelter built. And there are facilities that are possibilities. Too bad we didn't take advantage of the Greyhound bus depot, but I think as a temporary spot, as was mentioned, I think it's a great idea. My appreciations to Councilor Surratt for her overall sensitivity and support to this issue. And obviously your ward is stepping up, and I would love to see all the other wards step in the same way. I appreciate Councilor Pryor for saying that he wants to get a spot, and Michael Kerrigan and I have stepped up, and we are going to work to find a spot in his ward, and we will do the same for the rest of you as well. So, appreciations. Also, my appreciation to the woman who spoke about ADUs. We have to make ADUs easier. I mean, the problem is affordable housing. That's the fundamental problem here. We've got an expanding problem of homelessness because of the cost of housing. That is one of the solutions. So we got shelter and permanent housing. We got to do them both. We got to walk and chew gum at the same time. Okay. Finally, I want to express my appreciation to the managers of both the city and the county for getting together quickly to get Highway 99 camp off the ground. It's amazing. Whatever happens, do not shut that down. That would be a horrible tragedy. We got to keep that camp up and running, and we got to expand it. I've talked with Commissioner Sorensen about that. There's some possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabra Marcroft, followed by Karen Knudsen.
Hello, my name is Sabra Marcroft. I'm a resident of Ward 1, as I recently confirmed on the internet. First off, I wanted to thank you, Mayor Vinnis, for attending the open house and for your support of winter strategies. It's greatly needed and much appreciated. Thank you. Beyond that, I've looked a bit at the shelter feasibility stuff, and I didn't see anything about how Oregon is #1 in the nation for people over age 65 moving here. And I also didn't see anything about climate change and mass migration. And given the recent events in California, I think that the conversations about those issues need to come together. We are not, affordable housing, with all of the houses that were lost in California, anybody who can get an insurance check who can is going to come here, not just Oregon for the most part. Some people will go south because it's warmer, but they're going to come to Eugene because Eugene is what their community was when they bought the Beater house in the 70s and fixed it up and raised their kids there. We need to be preparing to welcome a lot of new guests and new residents here. And we need to be able to do it in a way that doesn't exclude the people who have already been forced out of their housing in Eugene. Thank you very much for all your efforts. We're going to need them.
Thank you. Karen Knudsen, followed by Lori Huber.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and Council, City Manager, for the opportunity to say hello tonight. My name is Karen Knudsen from Ward 3, and also here this evening as the project lead for the Better Housing Together initiative. And wanted to share just a few thoughts, appreciating so many of the comments and very heartfelt testimonies that you've heard tonight about so many issues that are indeed directly connected to how we grapple with housing in this community. And if your concerns are homelessness and wanting to understand the relationship, the direct correlation between communities that have a high cost of housing, such as ours, and high levels of homelessness in that community, the research is there. If you're interested in sustainability and how communities are taking steps to become more sustainable, more resilient, more likely to be able to weather the difficulties ahead, how we build and the diversity of pattern that we build in are absolutely related to that work. The amount of energy that we use in order to house our community, of course, related. If your concerns are making sure that everyone in this community has opportunities and are provided for, I would point you to the United Way's research in the most recent ALICE report, which came out this summer, and is data from 2016, because it takes about 2 years to get that data out to communities. But what we saw from the previous numbers is that this community, Lane County, has increased from 42% to now 44% of the community living at the ALICE threshold and in poverty. That basically means nearly half of our community, with those very conservative numbers that are used to generate that percentage, are living month to month and really struggling to meet basic needs, making hard choices continuously. So our work, Better Housing Together's efforts, have been focused on what we can do to help, what actions we can do to help, both small and large, and how we can move together towards solutions. One of those sets of actions that supports both housing diversity and affordability is, again, indeed, as a couple of people have mentioned, looking at accessory dwelling units, backyard cottages, and trying to understand how they help. We've been asked by many different people from across the spectrum of interests how ADUs help, and Portland State, thankfully, has done the research for us. Accessory dwelling units rent in the majority in the metro area of Portland between affordable housing and a market rate one-bedroom. That means they are filling in a very difficult to build gap in the housing ladder, and is absolutely one that we should encourage, both in our code and policies, but also through incentives. And Portland has waived their SDCs for ADUs in the last 8 years and seen remarkable response. Your discussion about the transportation SDCs and a cap for, I guess, the ADU waiver, we would encourage you to remove that cap and to do as much as you can to encourage those outcomes. We're also working currently with EWEB on changes to their development policies to reduce the utility burden for housing, and we would encourage council to take similar efforts to reduce cost burdens and seek as many efficiencies as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Hauber, followed by Stefan Strick.
Hi, my name's Lori Hauber, and I'm in Ward 1, Emily Simple's ward. First, I attended the work session tonight, and I really appreciated hearing all of you discuss and recognize the need for more rest stops and just in general the need for safe places for people to sleep. I also recognize and appreciate the fact that we know that's not the long-term solution, and housing is the long-term solution. And that brings me to a point that Councilor Taylor made, commenting on the fact that 40% of people from rest stops move into permanent housing. And your point, Councilor Taylor, was, well, why isn't it higher? And it should be higher. And I think we can pontificate on the different barriers that present as obstacles to housing. One of those barriers that we all need to work on and keep in mind are the barriers created by the accumulation of tickets and unpaid fines and criminal charges through what's been mentioned tonight and in other council sessions, the tickets through our anti-camping ordinance, the parks, tickets through our Parks Department, and impoundments, all of which have been discussed. And while it appears that EPD in the short term isn't citing people under 4.815, that really is just the short term. That's a short-term act. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but to me, there needs to be a longer-term solution that's not about ticketing, because the tickets and the accumulation of fines create barriers to housing and securing stable employment. And I don't know if somehow a program can be created to create incentives instead of punishing and fining people for sleeping and sleeping with some form of bedding. Impoundments. While there isn't data readily available for the number of people who are living in their vehicles and lose their vehicles each year, the anecdotal evidence that I've been able to gather suggests that the scope of the problem is significant. I mean, we're talking hundreds, and I'm working on trying to back that up beyond just anecdotal. But given those significant numbers, and the only reason people are losing their vehicles in many instances is because they don't have a legal place to park them and sleep. So somehow, we need to work on creating more legal places. Ideas were mentioned tonight, and I can't speak to the feasibility of those specific ideas, but something needs to be done. And yikes, I'm not done yet, but thank you.
Thank you. Stefan Strick, followed by Luke Callahan.
Hello. Hello. Thank you all for coming down here tonight. My name is Stefan Strick, and I appreciate the time everyone's taking to hear what I have to say. Now, you all know me, and I all know you, and we all know we've got the best city in the United States of America. So, that's why I take my time out of my day to come down here and let you all know what you're doing right and what we can all do better. Now, I apologize for missing our last couple of meetings. I woke up on Tuesday thinking it was Monday, just trapped where I was in between a gorgeous 19-year-old girl and a 5-pound cat. You'd think it was 1,000 tons of bricks. I couldn't believe it. But I set out and it was 4 p.m. in the afternoon before I realized it was Tuesday, and I completely had missed our meeting, 7:30 the previous night, when I was distracted by the aforementioned issues. Now, I am so proud of our city and everything we do for the homeless and those in need and animals and women's rights. I am so proud to be popularly recognized as the popular vote winner for Mayor of Eugene since 2016. And everywhere I go, I get such great compliments from people. You know, I go to the grocery store and they say, "Your bag is free, Mr. Strick." I'm like, "Oh, really? Can I get 2 bags?" And they say, "You get 2 free bags." Everywhere I go, I get the bag, and I get the bag for free. And it feels good. I recommend that everybody stand up for their rights against unjust taxes and say, "No, I deserve that bag. You get that bag." Now, moving on. We lost a great man this year, and I'll get back to that in a minute. What I'd like to speak about is a young man who triumphed fantastically. I was told this Halloween that I became a Halloween costume. Little Jimmy, 11 years old, who'd been struggling with beating cancer this past year, dressed up as me for Halloween. He got a hold of one of my Winners Don't Use Plan B campaign buttons, and he got a tie-dye shirt. He couldn't afford a suit and tie, but I wear tie-dye shirts pretty regularly, so he got a tie-dye shirt, drew himself a Gadsden flag with crayons, sent me the picture. It was fantastic. And he said, "Mr. Streck, I hope that someday I get to vote for you to be President of the United States." And this is how I felt, right here. You see that? That's love. And you can't make that up. And that's what you get from the voters when you really put them first. You've got to make the voters come first. They won't do it for themselves. And this goes for women. You've got to make women come first. And we can all do that. And I'd like to see more people stand up today and say that they've got what it takes to make other people come first, make women come first, and protect the rights of all of us. God bless America. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Luke Callahan.
Hey there. I'm not so good at the microphone, so I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Thanks, everybody, for waiting. So anyways, what I'm talking about tonight is simple, the SDCs. I think what all of our roles in this city and all communities we live in is to really work in our own special way to make our place of residence a better place. And we all have different ways to do that. And I think your roles as counselors and mayor is to provide as many options to us as our little hardworking honeybees that want to do the good things in this city. And so I personally think that Eugene is transitioning into a bit of a retirement community, a good place to retire. I'd like to see, which is great, and it's a great place to retire. It's a wonderful place. I'd also like to see, coming from a lineage where my great-great-grandfather and all between me and him, grandparents all the way are buried together west of town, I'd like to see my descendants buried all together and we could be one happy buried family hundreds of years down the line. And the way to do that, I think, is to make this a wonderful place to raise a family and a wonderful place to retire. And I think you could retire in a 90-unit apartment cell, you know, or you could retire in a beautiful backyard cottage where there's a young family working the land, gardening, and you're telling your stories and raising the kids while they're at work. And I think that sounds pretty nice. But I think there's a lot of friction to that. In the last 3 years, we've built a total of 6 SDCs, ADUs here in Eugene. And Portland has built 200 in 2014, 400, 2015, and 800 2016, and I think it's because they waived their SDCs. So the big fear of waiving the SDCs is we're not going to make the money, but we've built 6 ADUs, and on an average of $10,000 in SDCs per ADU, that's $60,000. So if we waive the SDCs, we might, as a city, miss out on $60,000. I don't think that's that big of a risk. What if we waive it and then 6 more ADUs get built and then 6 more people have a wonderful place to retire? Or in my case, I would love to give an ADU opportunity to my brother-in-law so he could work his minimum wage Panera job and then, get $400 rent and live with me and my girlfriend. That sounds pretty nice. Anyways, thank you all for your work. I appreciate everybody staying late, and thank you.
Thank you. And that closes the public forum for the night. Are there counselors who wish to comment? Counselor Syred, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who came to speak, including those who've left. Once again, people give us incredibly important perspective on the many issues that we're grappling with. I did just want to share, partly since our city engineer, Matt Rodriguez, happens to be here for the next work session we're going to have, that he sent an email to us on Tuesday that I'll read very quickly here. Mayor and Council, Public Works is working across the department with assistance from regional partners to rapidly design and construct a safe temporary pedestrian crossing on Highway 99 at the Lindholm Center. The crossing will include the construction of new sidewalk access ramps, signage and striping, a temporary pedestrian island, and placement of temporary rapid flashing beacons that are on loan from the city of Springfield. He says construction is planned to begin the week of December 3rd and be completed December 10th, weather permitting. A larger project to construct a permanent pedestrian crossing at this location is scheduled to be completed in 2020, including relocation of the LTD bus stops. The temporary crossing will be constructed so that the elements of the curb ramps, signage, and striping can be used as part of the permanent improvement. So I wanted to make sure that folks knew that. Our city manager and our city engineer have actually moved pretty quickly, considering how long public works projects can take to implement to address the pedestrian safety issues that have been raised with the locating of the Dust Till Dawn, the Highway 99 site across from the Lindholm Center. Thank you.
Any other counselors for comments? I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who commented tonight and to reinforce I am very committed to the exploring and expanding our car camping program. I do think it's sort of the fast and most immediate way in which we can positively impact people's lives. And so I'm anxious to work on that with any community members. I'm very interested in the Human Rights Commission's comments about the citations and look forward to having more conversations with council and with any of you who want to sit down and talk to me about that. So interested in how we proceed in a safe way, but I think we do need to talk about how we enable people just to be safe who don't have shelter until we can provide them with shelter. So thank you for all of that. And Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I noted tonight that almost everybody, with a few exceptions, spoke tonight in some tangential way about where people live, about housing. Most everybody in the room understands its expense. Council does. We've called it a crisis, as have so many of you, both tonight and at other times. I would encourage all of you to, and if I didn't absolutely feel 100% certain of this, I wouldn't say it, and it was going to come off a little snide. But I encourage all of you to stay and watch us increase the price of housing in a couple of minutes, because that's just exactly what we're going to do. Despite the fact that I will object, and some people objected here tonight, that's what this body's going to do. Just want you to stay and watch. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. We are ready to move on to our council business, and the first is the consent calendar.
I move to approve the items on the consent calendar.
Second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you very much. That's approved. Okay, now we are ready for the first action item, Ordinance and resolutions adopting the transportation system development charge methodology. Manager?
Thanks, Mayor. Over the last year, Public Works has worked with Council to update the transportation SDC methodology. And at your October 15th work session, you directed us to bring back a transportation SDC package with 4 changes. Public Works has incorporated those 4 changes you asked for, and Sarah Maderi, Public Works Director, will present the package to you tonight.
Good evening. So I'm just going to do a really quick recap that'll be a little tiny bit redundant about what John just said. This will be the 4th time that we've been here this year, I think, on transportation SDCs. We started off in February. We came and talked to you about the purpose for that, why we were even moving forward with that. Some of that had to do with state statutes. The last time we updated our methodology was in 2004. And a lot of it, most of it, was related to your recent adoption of the TSP, which did include a number of projects and priorities you wanted to get accomplished. We went out to the public. We got some outreach. We came back in June. We presented that to you. And then we had a public hearing. And in response to that, we came back in October with a revised proposal for you that had a little bit of the feedback incorporated into it, and had a pretty good conversation about that. I think we did SDC 101 probably the 3rd time in that meeting, so I wasn't planning on doing that again tonight. You asked us to go away with 4 specific things that we've brought back for you. So what you have tonight to potentially take action on is to implement the fee increase over 2 years. So the first increase would go into effect this January, and then the rest of it would go into effect next January. You asked us to reduce the TSDC for accessory dwelling units 100%, and we've done that in the way that there's some terminology issues that if we need to get into, we can probably bring somebody up like Emily. But essentially what you said is we want this to apply across the city for second dwelling units, accessory dwelling units, whatever the vocabulary is. So we've included the language to do that. The third was to establish an annual cap on that incentive for accessory dwelling units. That cap is intended to roll forward. So if you get $10,000 this year, that $30,000 will roll forward and we'll have 70 next year. So it's intended to be going forward. And the annual cap of 130 on all the rest of the transportation incentives around the corridors and the rest of them. So in that conversation, though, I want to acknowledge that it was really clear that what you were trying to do with that cap, and I think what we were trying to do with that cap, is provide a little bit of certainty for planning and budgeting, but not an intent to demotivate people from doing this. So what we had proposed to do is that we will keep you informed on where we're at, and if it looks like there's a possibility we're going to hit that cap, we can come back to you and say, hey, this is actually ridiculously powerful tool for incenting development. Maybe you want to change the cap. And I know, it's tough. I mean, the investments that we make in our public infrastructure do sometimes increase housing costs, and that's a really tough thing for you to balance. It's a lot of different priorities. We know that. I feel like the proposal in front of you is pretty reasonable. If you take action tonight, when we hit full implementation in 2020, we'll still be 14 or 15 out of 20 cities. So we're still in the bottom quarter of costs. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean that the full council will support that, but I do think it's important that I think it's a reasonable approach. With that, if you have other specific questions we can bring up, we've had a few changes. As you noted, Matt Rodriguez is our city engineer. We also have one of our new engineering analysts here, Ray Joseph, and we can answer any more questions you might have.
Okay. I have Councilor Clark. Any other councilors? Councilor Syrett. Okay. Take it over.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just say for I suppose the benefit of those watching and those here, that this council agreed before to drop the SDCs on ADUs because we want more of them built. Sounds like we agree and know that the more you have SDCs, the more expensive it is to build housing, the more expensive it is to live in housing. And so since we want to build more ADUs, we're going to go ahead and drop that for a while up to a certain amount of money. Good idea. Fine. I'll vote in favor of that. I won't vote in favor of the idea of this increase The way this policy works, for anybody who doesn't know, we make a project list of things we want to build in transportation, and then we say, what does it cost? But only after, and considerably after. And in this case, what it costs increases SDCs by over 50%. So we've said it's more important for us to build new bike paths and other things in transportation than it is to keep the price of housing down. And not just a little, but a lot. My e-web bill went up 25% last month, and it about shocked me when I opened the darn thing. It went from 175 to 235 bucks. I went, yikes, boy, the cold's here. We're still getting, last year, the baseline of about $2,500 every time somebody builds a house for transportation SDCs. We're going to raise that by $1,300 on the average size house. So now it's going to be a lot closer to $4,000 that we charge in SDCs to build a house. And we already know, because we've admitted it already in our policy choices, that we know that'll make housing more expensive. But we think building those other transportation things is more important, if we pass this, than keeping the price of housing down and affordable for everybody. And I think that's a mistake. So I just wanted to be clear about what people were watching occur.
Councilor Syret.
Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate what you had just been speaking to, Sarah, that in our discussion at City Council, when we passed those motions to bring this back to us for tonight, we talked about this waiver for the ADUs, system development charges, and we noted that if we saw ourselves reaching that cap that we set, which is basically kind of arbitrary, but as you said, gives us a benchmark for planning and budgeting, that if we were approaching that cap and we're really seeing some benefit to this incentive that we've created by waiving completely the system development charges for ADUs, that we could revisit that piece independently and either get rid of the cap or raise the cap or in some way change that. Is that correct? Yeah, okay, good. So I just want that to be clear. And, you know, we do have to make difficult choices on this council and balance the need to pay for our transportation infrastructure alongside the desire we have to reduce the cost of building homes. We never have a perfect solution, and we often have to address competing needs that sometimes even seem to be in direct conflict with each other. So sometimes we do vote to raise fees in order to meet other important needs like building infrastructure that I think a majority of this council recognizes as important to the future planning for our city in terms both of working to reduce congestion and address climate change and be prepared for what's coming our way. I think, you know, some of the comments tonight about climate change and folks from some of the devastation in California looking to Oregon as in the next frontier, I think those are very present. I think that's likely happening right now. And we've got a lot of needs that we need to meet, and sometimes we've got to raise our fees in order to be responsible in meeting those needs. And we don't always all agree with that, but I believe that those are the choices we have before us and the tough votes that we get to make.
Any other councilors needing to comment? Okay, are we ready to put a motion on the table?
I move to adopt the proposed resolutions at attachment C, a resolution adopting amendments to the system development charge methodologies, general methodology in Appendix A, B, and F, originally adopted by resolution number 4900.
Second. Okay, that's the third of 3 resolutions, so we'll do them backwards.
Yeah, all 3 of them need to be.
Yeah.
Sorry, I read those in inappropriate
reverse
order.
order.
Is there a reason for us not to do it in that order?
It doesn't matter which order we do it in, so let's just go ahead on that one.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. And you seconded? Yes. Any further comment? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1. Okay, that passes.
Exactly
Thank
backwards
you.
here.
All right.
I like the thinking. I move to adopt the proposed resolution of attachment B, a resolution adopting the transportation SDC project plan.
Second. Any comment, discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1. Okay, that passes.
I move to adopt Council Bill 5190, an ordinance concerning system development charge methodology, amending Section 7.710, 7.715, 7.720, 7.725, 7.730, and 7.735 of the Eugene Code 1971, and adding Section 7.732 to that code.
Second.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1, and that passes. Thank you very much. That completes that item on our agenda. Thank you very much. And so now we are on to item number 5, action, amendment of purchase and sale agreement for the butterfly lot. Manager, do you want to address this?
Good evening. I sent an email about this earlier. This is back in about a year ago, earlier this year, there was an amendment to the purchase sale agreement that was executed that set a December 1 deadline based on council direction for resolving all the legal uncertainties regarding the butterfly lot. And the quiet title action is complete, but just based on timelines and when the judge signed the judgments, the appeal period actually ends on December 16th, which actually is a Sunday, so it would kick it to December 17th, and which falls within your break. So I am recommending that you extend that, instead of extending the December 1 deadline to December 18th, which then would preclude any action if anything would happen, you'd be out on break. I'd recommend extending it to January 10th, and that would give you one meeting if for some reason we just need to have a discussion or need to have you have some flexibility. So that is the motion you have in your revised agenda. And you'll need to make it twice. You'll need to also make it as the Urban Renewal Agency because it is a 3-party agreement. And so it would make that one change December 1 to January 10.
Okay, any questions, concerns about that? All right, could you put the motion
I move
out?
to direct the city manager to execute an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement to change the December 1, 2018 deadline for resolution of the legal uncertainties regarding the butterfly lot to January 10th of 2019.
Second.
Any other comment? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, none opposed, so that passes. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to adjourn the Eugene City Council meeting and open the Eugene Urban Renewal Agency. And we can put the same motion on the table.
I move to direct the board director to execute an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement to change the December 1, 2018 deadline for resolution of the legal uncertainties regarding the butterfly lot to January 10th of 2019.
Second.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, none opposed, and that passes. Thank you very much, and we are adjourned.